second. I'm recording it to the cloud, and I'm going to turn this over now to the very competent, for the record, Sarah Burns-File. So go ahead, Sarah.
All right, thanks, Larry. So good morning, everyone, or hello, everyone. I guess it might not be morning where everybody is. I'm going to share my screen. So you should see now the advertising and marketing webpage that we've created for students at PACE. So hopefully you see that. You do, I hope. Someone tell me if you don't.
I see it.
Good. Okay. So I would say if you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember that I am here to help. You can contact me, ask me questions after today. These two tools that we're going to look at today are pretty complex and different. So you will have questions, and that's great. Ask me those questions. I am happy to try and answer them. So there were two documents that were sent to you by Professor Shigeris, and you should have those now. And the first one is labeled Marketing 221 Library Resources and Services. And this is an overview of what I'm going to show you today. The website for that the address for the website, the advertising and marketing website, is on the top of that document. You should be able to just click and open that. And my email address is also in that document. So definitely contact me if you have questions after today. So that's the first document. The second document that you were sent is a more detailed handout. I say handout because normally I would be handing these out in class, right? More detailed instructions for using the Simmons database and the MRI database. So those are the two products that we're going to look at today. So you should have those two documents handy somewhere. You don't need them on your screen right this second, but just make sure that you receive those and you have access to those. So again, this is the advertising and marketing research guide that we've created, and you can get to it at liveguides.pace.edu/marketing. And it starts off on this home kind of welcome tab, and there again is my contact information. And you can see there are tabs on the left for situation analysis, which these are some of the tools that my colleague Noreen will be talking to you about, I believe on Monday. Is that right? I think she's coming next Monday. So she should be covering some of these situation analysis tools. And then there's a tab for consumers, and this is where we're going to spend our time today. But you see there are also tabs there for media plan spending, media plan ratings and circulation, and then videos. So these are the videos that Professor Shigeris was talking about. I recorded some new videos this spring when we all went home. I had some more time, and there are a series of videos here about Simmons, and then a couple of videos about MRI. So those would review a lot of what I'm going to show you today. So you have those short videos as well after today. So this is where we're going to start from, is the consumers tab. And we're going to talk about two products, one called Simmons and one called MRI. They used to be two competing companies, and they merged, gosh, a year ago, 2 years ago. So we're kind of waiting for them to merge their two products that we buy, but it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens. Every semester, I'm waiting to see if they're going to change. So Simmons and MRI, what they do is they conduct consumer surveys in the United States. So they send the survey out each year. About 25,000 people a year complete the Simmons survey, and I believe it's 24 or 25,000 people a year complete the MRI survey. So these surveys ask consumers questions, and it's conducted in the United States. People 18 and older complete this survey that we have access to. It does not include Alaska and Hawaii, and they are asked, people who complete the survey are asked hundreds of questions about product usage, brand usage, activity, daily activity, where do they shop, do they buy things online, do they buy toothpaste, do they buy organic toothpaste? So all these questions about product usage, brand usage, and behavior. Simmons also measures people's psychographics. So I didn't mention, but of course they are also asked demographic questions: age, gender, household income, level of education, marital status, do you have children, do you not, where do you live? So a lot of demographic questions. Simmons also measures people's psychographics, which are people's attitudes and opinions about things. That's what we use Simmons for. We go into Simmons and we tell it, okay, what group of people are we interested in learning about? So for example, if we are interested in learning about a certain demographic group, 18 to 24-year-olds, we can tell Simmons that. And then we can learn their attitudes and opinions about things, okay? The MRI survey is very similar. The strength of the MRI survey is they measure people's media usage. What TV channels do they watch? What magazines do they read? What websites do they visit? What types of television shows do they watch? Do they listen to the radio? Do they read the newspaper? That's what we're going to get out of MRI. So if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, pause, you can unmute, you can ask me a question, or you can throw a question into the chat. I'm happy to take questions along the way, like you don't have to wait till the end. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them as we're going through this. So I'm going to click to enter Simmons. We'll do Simmons first, and we'll try and get connected. Oh, why is this so slow? All right, well, fingers crossed that this speeds up a little bit. It usually isn't this slow. And I'm going to jump over, while that's loading, I'm going to jump over to the Simmons handout. So some you paste username and password. Simmons, you can do that, but only 20 people can do that at a time. So be aware of that. The handout will remind you of that and tell you that. So if you go to Simmons and it says that all seats are in use, that's why 20 other people have already used it. So my best advice is don't wait till the last minute because you'll want to be able to get in there and use those. And I did just get a little message that my internet connection is unstable. So I'm going to hope that that gets sorted out. Hopefully I'm coming through clearly. Okay. I might actually.
You froze up for a moment there, but nothing that I think is material. I think.
Okay. I think what I'm gonna stop my video, like my, the webcam, because that helps sometimes. So, but you can still hear me hopefully. So that might help a little bit. Okay, so Simmons, I'm going to click on Simmons and proceed in. And like I said, 20 people can use Simmons at any one time. And this is the Simmons interface. And like I said, it's very different from any other database that we have. It's not an article database. You're not going in here to search for journal articles. What you're going in here to search for is basically we have access to the answers, what those 25,000 people said who took the Simmons survey. And to let you kind of picture it in your head, this handout does have a page in it that gives you examples on how to interpret the data that you will find in Simmons. And this will help you to envision, I know it's a little bit busy, this will help you to envision what we're actually building in Simmons. So what we're building is called a cross-tabulation. So we are going to put things in columns, and we are going to put things in rows, and then we're going to build a table, and the data in each cell of the table is going to tell us something about the people in the column. So we normally put people in columns. So we can put people in columns, or a group of people in a column, based on how they answered a question on the survey. So if they answered the age question and they're between 18 and 24 years old, we can put all those people in one column. If they're 25 to 34 years old, we can put those people in a different column. Or maybe they answered a question about, do you drink domestic beer, yes or no? We can put the people who said yes in one column, the people who said no in another column, and then we can compare those two groups of people. So that's what we're doing. We're putting groups of people, targets or segments of our population into columns. And then we're going to learn about them by putting their attitude and opinion statements in the rows, okay? Any questions so far? This is just to give you an idea of what we're building, because sometimes if you don't know what we're going for, this all is a little bit confusing.
Let me just jump in and say that for most of you, if not almost all of you, you're going to end up working somewhere at some point in time where you're going to need to access an existing database. It may not be Simmons. Many of our students do graduate on and have to access it for their jobs, but not all. But what I've been told by my former students, particularly members of the brand marketing team who've gone on to other businesses and jobs and stayed in contact with me, they said what they learned through learning how to access the Simmons database and the MRI database prepared them for the ability to be much more adept, much more effective at accessing databases of a wide and range and nature so that it becomes intuitive for them. And they usually end up being stars of wherever they are, because a lot of people who graduate don't learn how to do these things from other schools or other departments. So look at it from a point of view of this is going to help you with the project this semester. This is going to help you a lot if you go into media, but it's even going to help you if you don't go into media. So that's why this is such an important lecture. Thanks, Sarah.
Sure, thank you. All right. Okay, so you have that image in your head that we're basically building a table. That's how, think of that from the beginning. When you first enter into Simmons, there's one important step that you have to do. So the survey is conducted in 2 waves every year, and Simmons allows us to search 6 months worth of data or the full year, 12 months worth of data. We want to search 12 months worth of data. We want the biggest sample that we can get, all 25,000 people. For some reason, Simmons defaults to searching just 6 months worth of data. So we have to change that when we first enter into the database. So there's this drop down at the top that you can see here that says Spring 2017 Adult Study 6 month. You want to click there, click where it says NHCS Adults, and then choose the 12 month. So Spring 2017, 12 month. And now you might be thinking that Spring 2017 is old. It is, it's a few years old. This is the most recent data that they will sell an academic institution at this point. They sell more recent data to their corporate clients. This is what they'll sell us at a college and university. And then I did learn, I think from you, Professor Seguras, a few years ago, that people don't really change all that much in 2 or 3 years. This year is probably a different story. Things are very different this year. So, take that into consideration when you're running your searches in Simmons, that you're searching what people said in 2017, in the year 2017.
I think even if we had the spring of 2020, I'm not sure I'd want to rely on that data, because I'm not sure it's indicative of the long-term attitudes and behaviors and sensibilities of the consuming public.
Right, right.
It would be probably an outlier. So you want to start with the most recent data being the fall of 2019. Of course, we don't have that.
Correct.
Nonetheless, what is true is in the aggregate demographic slices of the population don't change much from year to year. They change a lot over 3 to 5 years maybe, but not over year to year. That's why the 2017 data is fine. And in fact, for small sample sizes, we sometimes try to find a way to combine a couple of years worth of data. I guess, Sarah, remind me again, that cannot be done automatically through Simmons. You have to do it manually through an Excel spreadsheet to combine 2016 and 2017 together. Am I right about that?
Correct. Yeah, you can't search more than one study at a time. You can only choose from this list. Yeah, so no, you're right. You can't combine like 2017 with 2016. You can just choose, one set.
Right. You can look at 2016, import it into Excel, look at 2017, import it into Excel, and try to arithmetically, just through addition and subtraction.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Together, right? But unfortunately, the machine doesn't do that for you. So.
Correct. Yeah, which is too bad, because you think that they they would want to. All right. Well, we can give them that feedback and see if they make that feature available at some point. Okay, so Simmons, here we are. It's a survey conducted in the United States. There are hundreds and hundreds of questions on the survey. And this list on the left, think of these as folders, even though the little icon is an arrow and not a folder. But these folders contain the questions that were on the survey. So you can see they're broken down into categories. So cell phones, smartphones, and tablets, entertainment and leisure, food. People are asked so many questions about food. You can see all the different subcategories for food. Beverages, daily activity, shopping, cleaning products, pet food gets its own category, electronics. So all these folders contain the questions that were on the survey. And then of course there's this folder that says lifestyle demographics. So this contains the demographic questions that were on the survey. And you can see some of them are listed right here. You can start to see them, but we have to go a little further in to demographics personal information to get to the most basic demographic questions that were on the survey, including age, which is important to you all, right? Gender, race, level of education, marital status. So these are the questions that were on the survey. When you get to this level where you see the little question mark icon, that's what that means. These were questions on the survey. So for example, they were asked, what's the highest level of education you have completed? And when you click on one of the questions, the middle frame is then populated with all the potential answers that were on the survey. So these were the answers that people could choose from. So if I click on the age question, you can see that I'm not just given a list of individual ages. We are for 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds. But beyond that, there's age ranges. These are typical age ranges that are used in marketing. So 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, etc. Those are the real typical age ranges. Now for your project, I believe you're interested in people, it's really Gen Z is what we're talking about, right? So 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. Is it going all the way to 24-year-olds?
Yes, they basically, for this dating, I'm being told, I guess I should get closer to the screen because someone just texted me to say they can't hear me very well. Can you hear me, Sarah?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
I can now, yeah. You were a little quieter when you moved away, but yeah.
Thank you. So they want us to focus on 18 to 24-year-olds.
Okay.
That said, the sweet spot within 18 to 24-year-olds is 18 and 19-year-olds. They don't explain why, except that I assume it means they want to get people early in the time frame as they're beginning to experiment with dating sites. In fact, any information or intelligence that could be found won't be found here with our subscription to Simmons. There are subscriptions to Simmons that actually goes into looking at teenage data. We don't have that, but there's a lot of other sources that actually I should tip off Noreen that she should work on that, provide it to us. But there's other sources of information about 16 and 17-year-olds, right? So
yes,
we're going to want to know about them, even if it's small scale and qualitative. But the overall, we're looking at 18 to 24-year-olds.
good. Okay, so what we can do then, so that's an age range, right? Simmons gives us that age range. So we can put all the people between the ages of 18 and 24 into a column together. So we can then learn about that group of people. And to do that, all I have to do is click and drag the 18 to 24-year-olds over to this box on the right that is labeled columns. So now you can see under sample, it says 2,221. That means 2,221 people who took the Simmons survey in 2017 were between the ages of 18 to 24. Then you see weighted, and you do see a number, but you have to add these 3 zeros to that number. So it's not 28,000, it's 28 million. So those 2,221 actual people who completed the Simmons survey, that represents 28 million people in the United States, age 18 to 24. So that's what those numbers mean. Now,
Here's how you know it's accurate. Um, Not because Simmons is a big company that's been doing this for many, many years, because it still could not be accurate. But just so you know, um, the roughly 4 million people in the United States for each age cohort, right? A little bit less, maybe 3.9 million. So when you look at the 18 to 24, 7 years, 7 times 4 million is 28 million. Um, so that's how you know it's accurate.
good. There's a lot of math in this. Math is not my strong point, but math is definitely a part of this. So Dr. Shiguras just said that the sweet spot is 18 to 19-year-olds. So what I would like to do, if this were my project, is I would like to learn about the 18 and 19-year-olds. So 18 to 24 is a big range. 18-year-olds probably behave somewhat differently from 24-year-olds. So what I would like to do is I would like to learn about the 18-year-olds. So I'm going to drag them over, and the 19-year-olds. So I'm going to drag them over, and you can see that 389 people age 18 completed the Simmons survey. 298 people age 19 completed the survey. Those samples are approaching small. We'll probably get some okay data, but what you can do is you can combine those two smaller samples to make a larger sample. So just like 18 to 24-year-olds are all in this group, the 2,200 students, we can combine the 18-year-olds and the 19-year-olds together to make a larger set, which would be like around 600 and something, right? If you combine those two numbers. Now, how do we do that? That's using this box on the bottom of the screen, which it probably is hard to tell that I'm clicking in there, but that big empty box on the bottom left is called the coding box. That's where you build a column where you have more than one variable in that column, or people answer more than one question a certain way. So in this example, what we can do is we can combine the 18-year-olds and the 19-year-olds to make a larger set. So either one is okay, right? And we can do that by dragging from this answer box in the middle, or you can also drag from the columns, just so you know. So, so I'm going to click and drag all the 18-year-olds down to the coding box. And then I have to actually choose my search term, which in this case is the word or. And the box turns red. That's telling me that you're not done yet. You have to put something else there. So I'm going to drag the 19-year-olds down there. And now the box is green. So that's an acceptable search statement. So this tells Simmons, build a set of everyone who said they were 18 or said they were 19. So this is going to make a larger set. To get this over to the columns, we can't just click and drag, but there's this little button below the coding box, which if you hover over it, it says move to columns. It kind of looks like columns. That will move our new set over to the right. So that's using or. That's if you have two smaller samples and you want to put them together to make a larger sample, okay? So now you can see that our age 18 or age 19 is 687 people in the column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and then right click, and I'm going to delete just the 18-year-olds, and then you can click and right click to delete just the 19-year-olds. Now you could leave them. This is just an example. You could decide to look at the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the 21-year-olds separately, but I fear that some of the samples are going to be too small and you won't get a lot of usable data.
Let me jump in here if I may, and tell you one of the analyses you're going to want to do. You're going to want to look to see, depending upon what variables and the descriptive variables you're going to use to understand these people, you're going to want to see how different the 18 and 19-year-olds are from the rest of the target audience. Now, unfortunately, I guess you could combine 20, 21, and 22 through 24 as one group of people. Even though we're interested in 18 through 24, and we still are. But the question is, how different are the emerging younger, just, those just about to enter into adulthood, how different are they from the rest of the target audience, which would be 20 through 24? So
Let's do
that's
that.
an interesting analysis that some of the teams that want to get an A might want to think about doing. Thank you.
Sure, let's do that. So let's do that. We can combine. So I'm going to drag the 20-year-olds down to the coding box. I'm going to click my search term or. I'm going to drag the 21-year-olds down to the coding box. I'm going to click my search term or, and I'm going to drag my 22 to 24-year-olds. So now this column will contain the 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24-year-olds, those 5 years. I'm going to rename this column. You can do this here. 20 to 24, just because it'll be a little bit easier to read over in the columns area. So then I'll click move to columns, and there they are. So we've got about 1,500 or so 20 to 24-year-olds. We've got almost 700, not quite 700, 18 or 19-year-olds. So we can now compare those two groups. Okay. Something else you might want to do is then consider the gender question. So in 2017, when they're asked the gender question, these are the two choices that they were given on the survey in 2017. So you might be asking yourself, well, 18 and 19-year-olds might behave a certain way, but what about people who said they were female and people who said they were male? Maybe they behave in a different way. So same thing with the 20 to 24-year-olds. So here's where it gets really interesting. So we are going to use the coding box again, right? And we're going to combine the gender answer with the age answer. But in this case, we're going to use the search word and, because we want to know everybody who chose male and they were 20 to 24 years old. Now there's another even though it says that it's green and that's okay, something you have to do is put this section of the search in parentheses so that it keeps that set together. So I put my cursor right before age 20, and then I clicked the open parentheses, which it put at the end for some reason. All right, let's take that out. You can cut and paste. Okay, so open parentheses, there's my age questions, close parentheses. So what that tells Simmons is keep those age groups, keep that big set, keep those 1,500 together, okay? So those 1,500 people. And now tell us, okay, of those 1,534, how many people also chose male? So this is, let's rename our column, male 20 to 24, move to column, and there's 721 of them. So now we're going to do the same thing. And you can do it in either order. So if I drag the 20 to 24-year-olds over there now, and I really thought that I could just put my cursor, oh there, okay, that worked. I put my cursor at the beginning, I clicked the open parentheses, now I click the closed parentheses, I click the search word and I drag down the females from the answer. So you can do it in either order. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that if you have used or to connect two or more groups, you must put that in parentheses if you are going to then combine that with another question using the word and. And I know that that might be complex, but you can always, like I said, you can always ask me questions after today. If you're going in to build these searches and you want to run them by me first before, to make sure they're okay, shoot me an email and I'm happy to do that. I can go over those with you. Okay, so now we can see that our males 20 to 24, there are 721 of them. Our females 20 to 24, there are 813 of them. Questions about using the coding box, using and, using or, using parentheses, putting people into columns. What are your questions so far?
Wow. This has been a pretty good class for asking questions up until now. Maybe they're just so smart. Or maybe, Sarah, you've done such a great job explaining things, there are no questions.
Or it's just so completely overwhelming that, no, I'm just kidding. It's complex. So it could be that it's percolating in your brains and your questions will come. And that's good, that's fine. So, ask your questions when you have them. Okay, so we've got our people in our columns. I do want you to also remember, so we have created these groups based on how people answer demographic questions. You can also create columns based on how people answer the product questions and the brand questions and the behavior questions. So for example, in the folder labeled internet, this is where they were asked questions about how they use the internet. And you can see digital music services, online internet use, social media. They're basically trying to figure out what are people doing on the internet. Inside the folder online activities, and this is actually on this handout that I gave you. So if you look at this handout, you can see the demographic information is there. And then this is there kind of just telling you that this is actually there on the survey if you wanted to follow that. So you'll have a reminder after today. So online activities used or visited in the last 7 days, online activities used or visited in the last 30 days. So they were asked, what online activities did you actually do in the past month? So when I click on that question, you can see these were the potential answers. So people could check that they used a chat forum, they bought stocks, they downloaded music files. Now, one of the things that's on the list is personal ads and dating services. So they were asked, okay, in the last 30 days, did you use personal ads or dating services on the internet? And the people who checked that, we could put them in a column if we wanted to. We can drag them over. So only 634 people total out of all 25,000 people who took the Simmons survey, 634 people said that in the past 30 days, they had used personal ads or dating services. So you might want to learn about those 634 people. Like why are they using it? You know, so that's something to think about. So then also they are asked about what websites. So have you used websites in the last 30 days? Yes or no? And then actual websites used or visited in the past week or in the past month. And on this list, now, of course, this is not a list of every website on the internet, right? It's a very selective list. But on this list, if I can get to it, is Match.com.
Oh, good.
So they were asked, yes.
I didn't know Match was on. That's fantastic.
So let's see how many people said they had used it. 231 people out of 25,000 said that they had used it in the last 30 days. So that's not a huge number, but it's 231 people that we could try and learn about. So it's in there, it's in that list. And again, that's on the handout. So you'll have that as a reminder after today that you can go in there and you can learn. So now you might be thinking, oh, I should combine the people who use Match with the 20 to 24-year-olds, because maybe you're interested in 20 to 24-year-olds who have used Match in the past 30 days. I'm pretty sure I ran that and the sample is really tiny because you're starting with only 231 people who had used Match.com. But let's try it. Let's do Match and let's do 18 to 24. Let's use the like over 2,000 and let's see what we get. So Match 18 to 24, move to columns, and it's 38 people. That's too small. So when you combine two sets using and, you get a smaller sample. So everyone in this sample had to say, yes, I used Match in the last 30 days, and they fell into that age group 18 to 24. So only 38 people. So that's kind of a bummer because that would have been great if there were like 500 people in that sample. But unfortunately, it's only 38. It's too small. Less than 60, I think, is the cutoff in Simmons. They consider to be that will produce unstable data. So, so I'm going to delete that column because it's really not gonna. It's too small. But at least you can look at the couple hundred people who did actually use Match in the past 30 days. You could learn about them if you wanted to. Okay, so we've got people in columns. So now let's talk about what we're going to put in the rows. So the rows, we're going to use this folder on the left called lifestyle statements. So we're going to put attitude, opinion statements in the rows. Then we're going to run our table, or we're going to run our crosstab, and it's going to tell us how likely is it the people in each column agree with the statement in the row. So to envision, I know it's hard to envision, but you can see attitudes and opinions about. So they measured people's attitudes and opinions about a variety of things: apparel, automobiles, cell phones, whoops, economic outlook, food, health and medicine, social interaction, social media, which is kind of separated out by itself, technology. So let's actually look at social interaction, because that might be interesting if we're talking about people dating, right? So when you click on attitudes, opinions, social interaction, the questions, they're not actually individual questions, but they're points on the Likert scale. So you know when you take a survey and you're presented with statements and you have to check if you agree or disagree with the statement. That's what they do on the Simmons survey too. So we usually start with any agree. So these are people who either agreed a lot or agreed a little. So when you click on any agree, the statements appear in the middle box. So I like to put things together in new ways. I'm good at leading discussions. I make friends easily. I am adventurous. So these are the statements that they were given under social interaction, and they had to check if they agree or disagree.
Now,
So
if I could just jump in here, Sarah, for a moment. All the conversation has been on 18 to 24-year-olds, with 18 and 19-year-olds, the sweet spot, and with anything we can learn from other sources about 16 to 17-year-olds, something that's relevant for us. But hear me out. What's also important is to understand to what extent, to what degree do the 18 to 24-year-olds together, how different really are they from the broader population in general that uses a dating site? So I would definitely recommend you look at the 18 to 24-year-olds that use Match.com and look at to see how they differ, other than their age. How do they differ with those that are 25 and older, and how they use Match.com? Or you may want to look at just 25 through 29 being the next oldest cohort, to see how different this younger 20-something crowd is from the older 20-something crowd. You may learn something about that. It may give you some thoughts and ideas. That's how marketing strategists get creative with data. So be creative in what you look at, and also be creative at how you interpret the data. My recorded lecture on how to analyze marketing data, I think, demonstrates you can be creative when you look at information, when you look at numbers. That's what makes it fun. The numbers don't drive you, you drive the numbers, and you make decisions and recommendations based on the numbers. That's what strategists do. All right, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, that's good, because I really focused on the demographic group 18 to 24 and kind of breaking out, okay, let's compare the 18 and 19-year-olds with the 20 and 24-year-olds. But you're right, we should have probably also put the 25 to 34-year-olds in there and compared. So yeah, thinking ahead, kind of plan what your columns might be in advance. And also don't put too many groups in one crosstab, because it's difficult to keep track of everybody. So you'll see when we run this what I mean when I say that. So, okay, so we clicked on any agree. All of the lifestyle, the attitude and opinion statements are in the middle. We need to get each of these statements into a row. Now, you do not have to drag them individually. Simmons knows we want to do this, and they allow us to just click and drag the question, which in this case is any agree. Drag that over to the rows box, and you can see now that all 27 statements have been put into 27 rows. So they know we want to do that. So they gave us that little shortcut to get us started with that. Okay, so we've got our groups of people in columns. We've got our attitude and opinion statements in the rows. Now we're ready to run our cross tabulation, and we do that by clicking on this arrow at the top right. So when I click on run, it's going to display my results for me. Now, this is the view you want. This is called this chart type is called the crosstab view. It doesn't always default to this. Sometimes it defaults and looks like this, which is called the private eye view, and you see the menu on the left. So if you run a crosstab and it looks like this, you want to just click chart type and switch that to crosstab view. This is the view that you want to use to start to analyze the data, okay? So if we start to, you can see that there are scroll bars here. We can scroll down and we can scroll left and right because we created all these columns in our crosstab. So up at the top, here's the people, the 231 people who had used Match.com in the last 30 days. That's that last column. Here's the 634 people who had used online dating services in the past 30 days. And then you can see here are our male 20 to 24-year-olds. Here's our female 20 to 24-year-olds. And if we scroll over, we can see here's our, these are the 18 to 24-year-olds. Here's the 18 or 19-year-olds. So we could compare the 18 or 19-year-olds with the 20 to 24-year-olds. So you can see how this is laid out. And if we scroll up and down, the statements are in each row. So my friends and acquaintances look to me to organize our activities, or I am consumed with getting the best deal for a service or product I purchase. So if you hover your mouse over the statement, you'll be able to read the full thing. Now at this point, what I would recommend you do is use the export menu on the left and save this. So the only way to save this and use it after you leave Simmons is to export it into Excel. So click on export. It's going to throw it into Excel, and then you'll be able to go into Excel. You'll be able to, it's a little, it's different looking at it in Excel visually. To me, my habit is to look at the data in Simmons, but I could see the appeal of looking at it here. But you can see all the columns at least when you throw it into Excel. It makes it a little bit easier to see, okay, here are the columns that I created, and I could now start to look at the data in each cell. All right, so that's how you would save this. So throw it into Excel and save it. So there's a question in the chat. So why is the crosstab view better to look at rather than the private eye view? And the reason is, well, because that's what because that's what we need to do, is to look at the crosstab view in order to be able to analyze the numbers in each cell. Private eye view, gosh, I don't ever use it. So sample weighted vertical horizontal index. I don't have a good answer to that question. Probably because somebody taught me that I should be looking at it in crosstab view. Larry, what do you have an answer to that?
I do not. I do not have an answer. I think what my opinion is that it's whatever you're comfortable looking at. I like to look at crosstabs, and I like to look at them on Excel. That's what a lot of professionals do. But maybe it's my age, and maybe other people are used to looking at it a different way. I would recommend you look at it a couple of ways. Remember, my lecture on how to analyze marketing data recommends you look at data and then walk away from it, and then look at it again, because you may see something in it the second time you didn't see the first time.
I'm going to say also that now that I'm like, okay, going from private eye to crosstab. So the first number that we look at when we want to compare two groups, the first number that we look at, so say we're comparing the males and females 20 to 24. The first number we look at is the index. And let me see if so this little icon, the little bar chart, is the index. So in this example, the males 20 to 24 are indexing at 101. The females are indexing at 115. So you want to be able to quickly see those two numbers in relationship to each other. So for example, for this statement, the males are indexing at 87 and the females are indexing at 111. It's really easy to put them next to each other and compare in the crosstab view. In the private eye view, it's not as easy to see those two numbers next to each other. I mean, you can, like, here's the 87 and here's the 111, but it's just really, in terms of displaying it, this is how I've always been taught to interpret the numbers and to find them quickly and to look at them. So I'm sorry I don't have a much better answer to that question, but I can also look and see why would Simmons say to use private eye view, because they might have a suggestion. Okay. All right, so as I just said, the first number that we're looking at when we're comparing two groups is the index. So let's compare the males 20 to 24 with the females 20 to 24, just as an example. So here in this statement, we can see this statement is, I am good at simplifying things for others. The males are indexing at 87. The females are indexing at 111. And Simmons is giving us these visual cues, the green arrow going up and the red arrow going down. Now, an index of 100 is the middle, is average. If we all agreed with every statement exactly the same, the index would be 100 across the board, and that would be very boring, right? So it's good that we're all different. So in this case, 87 is below 100. So that means males 20 to 24 are less likely than the rest of the population to agree, I am good at simplifying things for others. The females are indexing above 100, so they are more likely than the rest of the population to agree with that statement. And specifically, they are 11% more likely than the rest of the population to agree, I am good at simplifying things. So the males are, what's 100 minus 87? 13. 13%, I told you math is not my strong point, 13% less likely than the rest of the population to agree, I am good at simplifying things. So questions about how you read the index? I will say that I was originally taught to look at an index 80 and below and 120 and higher as interesting. But then what I learned was that it's not just that. You also are usually comparing groups of people, and that they could be different from each other. So for example, this statement is, conformity makes me uncomfortable. The male 20 to 24-year-olds are 14% more likely than the rest of the population to agree with that. The female 20 to 24-year-olds are 32% more likely than the rest of the population to agree with that. So 114 is less than 120, but it's different from 132. So you're looking usually at 2 or 3 or however many groups of people in relationship to each other. So you may read that. You may see that somebody tells you, oh, look for an index of 80 or lower and 120 and higher. Well, but you're usually looking at groups in comparison. So I am consumed with getting the best deal. Males are indexing at 87, females are indexing at 105. The females are really close to being average, 105, but they're different from the males that are indexing at 87. So it's really about these numbers in relationship to each other, okay? So questions about the index? So the other thing I didn't mention, just this column labeled total, and the sample is 25,160. That's automatically put in every cross tabulation. That's everyone who took the survey. So that's how we know that 25,160 people took the survey. Okay. So yeah, so someone did send me a message. You shouldn't rely on small populations when there's an asterisk. Correct. So let's see, did we see any of those in here? If the sample that generated the data in a cell is too small, and they're probably over to the right because these samples were kind of small, Simmons will warn you. They will put an asterisk or a double asterisk, and I'm looking quickly, I hope I'm not making y'all seasick, an asterisk or a double asterisk into the cell, and that is warning you that the sample that generated that data is too small. A single asterisk, I believe it says it is possibly unstable. A double asterisk is it is unstable. Now, does it mean it's wrong? It doesn't necessarily mean it's completely wrong. It means you have to find some other piece of evidence to support what that data is saying. Maybe a research study or an article or a research report that you find on the internet from a reputable source, of course. But if there's something else that can confirm the data, then you could say, okay, that data is probably valid, even though the sample that generated it is too small. Okay. So other questions about the index? So
So let me
100 is,
just jump in here. So if all of your data is hovering, is not beyond 120 or below 80, or even better, above 150 or below 50, if it's all around 98, 103, 92, 109, if it's all around there, even though we like to focus on 120 or above or 80 or below for major differences, if you're getting a lot of 95 to 105 and all of a sudden you see 112, or you're getting a lot of 95 to 105 and you see 8, it's still worth looking at that, because if everything is tending toward the median average, then something is a little bit of an outlier. It's worth looking at and asking yourself the question, is there something here, something worth investigating further through other sources of information? All right, that's it. Sarah?
good, okay. So the next numbers that you would look at would be vertical percent, which is the down arrow, and then horizontal percent, which is the arrow going on the horizon. So vertical percent is highlighted in green, and then horizontal percent is highlighted in yellow, except it's a very small highlight in these examples because the number is so low. So how do we read these numbers? So vertical percent, for me, the way I do this is I start my thought or my statement with what is on the vertical. And you're usually more interested in the vertical percent because you're interested in those people that you put in the column, which is the vertical. So the statement is, people say I am expressive when sharing my opinions. Okay, so the females, of all the females aged 20 to 24, 58.6% of them agreed, people say I am expressive when I express my opinions. Okay. Of all the males, 20 to 24 years old, 51.4% of them agreed, people say I am expressive when sharing my opinions. So they're a little bit different from each other. Horizontal percent is just the opposite. Your statement begins, or your thought begins, with the people on the horizontal, which are all the people who answered the Simmons survey. Everyone who agreed, people say I am expressive with sharing my opinions. 4.2% of them are males 20 to 24. Now let's look at the females. Of all the people who agreed, people say I am expressive when sharing my opinions, 4.5% of them are females 20 to 24. So do you see the difference between vertical and horizontal? So vertical is about what's on the vertical. So the female, so of all the females 20 to 24, 58.6% agreed with the statement in the row. Horizontal is just the opposite. Of all the people who agreed with the statement, 4.5% are females 20 to 24. And this handout, the Simmons and MRI, this chart, this page on the handout has a reminder of how to interpret those numbers. So you'll have that after today as well. Questions about horizontal and vertical percent?
So if I could just jump in here a second and say,
Yeah.
we usually begin focusing on the verticals because we sometimes find them more interesting. But then we look at the horizontal for more in-depth information. But if you're putting the target audience or potential target audiences into the vertical, or if you're putting the segments, I see this possibly being a segmented solution. In other words, there's probably more than one type of consumer who engages in the use of these services, and they're not all the same. You might think, oh, they're all the same. They're all looking for love or something like that. I don't know. But I think you're going to find that there's some differences, and you want to separate them out because you may be able to appeal to them differently. Market segmentation has been with us for many, many years, but never before have we been able to do as much with it as we can now. With digital media purchases and technologies, we can reach market segments very discreetly and separately to deliver a message to some that's different than others, so that if we have 4 or 5 different target audiences, we might have 4 or 5 different messages that are all kind of on the same strategy, but slightly different. Let's say for younger men versus older men, or younger women versus older women. I think an 18-year-old woman is probably not like a 24-year-old woman. I think an 18-year-old man is not like a 24-year-old man. They're in different stages and places in their lives. So even though one would argue, but Dr. C, it's still a relatively small group of people, 18 to 24, yes and no. If you can still reach them more directly, engage them with a message that resonates more with them, you're going to be more successful. So give that some thought. Thank you, Sarah.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so this is just one crosstab that we ran. So we had created all those columns with our groups of people, and these are the attitude and opinion statements about social interaction. There were all those other categories of attitude and opinion statements. So you're probably going to look at multiple ways. So to get back to that screen, it's this button up at the top that says dictionary search. That takes you back to this interface. So now I can decide, okay, I'm done with these rows or these statements. You can clear all of them by using that little X on the rows header there. So now I could go to lifestyle statements, and then I can look at their attitudes and opinions about shopping. Whatever you determine that you need to look at. I click on any agree. There's all my statements. I drag any agree over to the rows, and now all those, and in this case, there's 43 statements. They have each been put into a row, and now I can click on the arrow and run my crosstab, and here's my results. So the columns are still the same. I didn't change anything in the columns, but the statements are what have changed. So now we're getting their attitudes and opinions about shopping. So, so really determining which category of attitude and opinion statements to look at, it's really going to be up to you to figure out, okay, which of those categories will be of the most interest to you. And here's actually on the right, you can see a cell count from 31 to 60, projections may be unstable, that's a single asterisk. And then a double asterisk indicates a cell count below 31, and they are likely unstable. So definitely use those with caution. And what's the first thing I should do? Export it into Excel, because you did all this work building your columns and choosing your lifestyle statements. What if the down? What if Simmons crashed? You would lose all that work. So once you run your crosstab, I say the first thing you should do is export it into Excel and save it. You prefer looking at it in Excel, and then you have it. If you decide not to use that crosstab, just delete it. It's fine. But at least you haven't lost all that work. Okay. So questions about Simmons before we jump over into MRI, because we need to look at MRI still. Questions about Simmons?
Yeah, I have a question. For the databases, how is there a way to check how updated the information is, or are there's like a certain date or when the research was collected?
So this one, Simmons, the most recent data we have is 2017. And that's this little drop down on the top. So this is where it's telling us that this is the spring. It says spring 2017. I believe that's when the study began. But this, when we choose the 12-month study, that's giving us the entire year's worth of data. So this data was collected throughout 2017.
Mm-hmm. So like 2017 is the most recent year of data collected, you said?
For this survey, yes, this is the most recent that they will sell an academic client. Corporate clients probably have 2019 data right now.
Yeah.
Corporate clients would have the fall 2019. They would not have the spring 2020, and they probably only just got the fall 2019 very recently. There's a big lag effect because of the enormity of collecting all these thousands of interviews, cleaning the data, putting it into good shape, and getting it ready for access. You would think it could be done more quickly, but it's not. It takes a while.
I believe this is still conducted on paper also, right? This is not an electronic survey.
Some of it is electronic, and a lot of it is still on paper in some fashion. The questionnaire when it was totally paper, was about 1.5 inches thick. If we were together, I would show it to you, but I don't have it with me. It's in my office in New York. But it's a lot of questions. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Simmons is really protective of their data, and that's why they don't sell the most recent data to academic clients. They sell it to their corporate clients. So it's really about the data being very proprietary. The interesting thing though, and we're going to see this when we go into MRI, is that we do have 2019 data for the MRI survey. For whatever reason, they've always been more generous with the academic clients. Fingers crossed that doesn't change, because now MRI and Simmons have merged. So I don't know, we shall see, but good. Okay. All right, I'm gonna leave Simmons so we can have a little bit of time in MRI. But obviously, if you have questions, you can ask them, and you can also ask me after today.